This is today the Hard Rock Hotel, but it was originally the headquarters for the Carbide and Carbon Company. They made dry cell batteries, and the dark color of the building is a tribute to that, designed by the sons of
That
Daniel
sound
Burnham.
from a Chicago architecture tour, one of many happening any day of the week in our fair city. Welcome to Architecture 360 on Rivet Radio. I'm Lee Bay. Chicago's architecture looks great in books and photographs, and of course it's fun to talk about on the radio, but like most things, it's all much better in person. Stand face to face with a Louis Sullivan, a Mies van der Rohe, or John Matuszimy. That's the pioneering black architect who designed the former Ebony Jet building at 820 South Michigan, and you'll understand the building's scale, its presence. And with the right tour guide, all of that, plus the human side of the building's history also. I was reminded of this while talking recently to Wendy Bright, an architectural historian, writer, and tour guide who was kind enough to stop by Rivet Studios recently. She operates her own architecture tour company called Windy City Chicago. Rather than pointing out cornices, pediments, and the names of long-gone architects, Bright is part of a breed of guides who use themes and histories to make the brick, limestone, and steel come alive. And that's key.
I'm really trying to get people to think about what did it feel like to be here in times past. And it's not just mid-century either. It could be 1920s or the 19th century. So we talk about when these buildings were built or when the Meg Mile opened. What was this like?
Chicago on tour right now on Architecture 360.
Who's speaking out from under a stairway, calling a name that's lighter than air? Who's bending down to give me a rainbow? Everyone knows it's windy. Who's stooping down?
Chicago has an $18 billion a year tourist industry, and a modest but by no means insignificant chunk of that is architectural tourism, where tickets can cost $30 or more. The Chicago Architecture Foundation offers 85 different tours of the city. Their river tour is perhaps the most visible, but the organization does offer scores of walking, bus, and trolley tours. Wendella Boat Tours offers architectural river cruises as well, while other groups, like the website Forgotten Chicago, give you a look at the roads less traveled, such as industrial sites, architecturally significant neighborhoods that are off the beaten path, stuff like that. The Bronzeville Visitors Center features tours of its historic South Side area, a marriage of history, civil rights, music, military history, and more. So why are architecture tours so hot? Let's go to Wendy.
I think architecture tours are hot in Chicago for a few reasons. One is that we're known for our architecture. People in the know that Chicago has great architecture. Even New Yorkers know that. They come here and they know this is something you have to see in Chicago. And the other thing is that I just believe that architecture is art that we all live with every day. We all get architecture to some degree because we're dealing with it every day. And so to come to a city where it's so beautiful, there's so much of it, it's mind-boggling. And so I think people really want to dig into that. And so, yeah, I think most of the tours in Chicago, if they put architecture in their description or their title, they're bound to get more business.
If there is a downside to this industry, it's that some guides, the not so reputable ones though, play a little fast and loose with the facts. And I've heard a few. Al Capone slept here, that kind of thing, when you know he didn't or no one knows if he really did. My favorite is that there was a second Chicago fire, but nobody talks about it and the reasons you can just fill in the blank with almost anything. Wendy Bright has a good one about the faceless Ceres statue atop the Board of Trade building.
And the false story goes that Ceres doesn't have a face because they believed in 1930 that there would be no taller buildings than the Board of Trade ever again. And so nobody would ever see her face. I mean, there are a lot of things wrong with that, but one is that it's an Art Deco sculpture. So if you think of the Oscar statuette, it's the same idea. It's streamlined, stripped down, very little detail. It's Art Deco. That's the story.
That wraps up this episode of Architecture 360. Join me next time.
Van der Rohe, and in a very nice touch, Mies's last building is right next door. This dark metal glass building I pointed out earlier is 330 North Wabash, completed in 1971.